Hey, Scott, welcome to Crosswalk Talk. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, Michael. I'm glad to be here. My pleasure.
Talking to Scott LeRette. Of course, Scott, you're the author of the book, The Unbreakable Boy. And of course, you're the subject of the new movie, The Unbreakable Boy. Let me give a plot summary for those who don't know anything about your story. The movie and the book, of course, recount how you and your wife fought to help your son, who is autistic and has a rare brittle bone disease. And of course, it recounts your son's joy that transforms everyone around him, including you. Take me back to the moment you wrote that book or decided to write that book, Scott. What inspired you to share Austin's story with the world?
Well, initially the story was just for me. It was purely for selfish purposes. I just wanted to get the thoughts out of my brain, and that's even how when I worked on my blog, I used that for myself as well. It was just little bullet points in little tiny
Mm.
notebooks. And there was a time where he broke a bone, he got a cast off, and then he broke a bone the same day, another bone. And my brother had asked me about that and just said, "Are you guys writing any of this down? Are you keeping track of your chaos?" Because we literally are that type of family. It never ends. It's always one thing after the other. It's been 30 years like that. And it wasn't until then that I thought about a book. And but prior to that, I thought with our dysfunction and what's that saying? If we weren't crazy, we'd be insane, or something like that. I thought we'd be a great television show, and that's what I originally thought. I didn't think at all about a book. I wanted a TV show because I was thinking of Wonder Years. I was thinking of Parenthood and whatnot. And then close the door, please. And someone's trying to come in here, but
That's fine.
that's what happens with Austin a lot. We don't have locks on some of our doors in our house, and Austin just walked in to try to see what was going on in here. But so it just started that way. I mean, it's a long process that went on a decade to come to where we are today, and lots and lots and lots of failure.
How long did it take you and your wife to realize that Austin had health problems? The movie portrays you guys as not knowing immediately. I'm curious, how long before you realized you needed a specialist?
Oh, he was a toddler when we found out about his bones. The autism came later, and then he had open heart surgery when he was 2 or 3, and then he had some other heart issues. And we always both agreed that the heart and the bones are not that big of a deal. They're not, in the grand scheme of things, they're no big deal. And it's Austin's autism, his who he is, his identity is that's 10 times more challenging than. And he's broken his back twice. He's broken every major bone but his femur. So we've had some pretty miraculous breaks, but the autism and Austin is wired differently than you or I. I always tend to say that he receives, processes, and transmits things just differently than we do. And sometimes I think it's that he processes things more profoundly than we do too.
Oh, wow. Wow. Do you have any examples of that you can share with us that
Well, he will say things or do things that Teresa and I both look like. There was a time where he started going on and on about a gorilla, and and then we're like, "What are you talking about?" And he perseverates quite a bit, and he wouldn't give it up. This was when he was very young, and then one day we were driving across I-80 through Omaha, and he starts pointing, and he's looking up at the Henry Dorley Zoo, and there's this big gorilla climbing up the billboard. That's what he'd always been talking about, and he wanted us to see that, and he wanted to go to the zoo. But he'll say things that so often later on they're true, and but we
mm,
just a lot of times we would discount or not ignore, but we just no, and then goodness gracious, later on he was right.
did him having both autism and brittle bone disease present unique challenges beyond what just having one of those would have presented? Was it kind of like a combination that led to just
Uh,
difficulty
well, I
as a parent?
again Austin's personality, who he is, what makes Austin Austin, is what so many of us like to say. Is that is that's the keystone.
Yeah.
Once we took him out of his proverbial bubble for his bones, which he was like a 10 or so. I don't recall the year, but once we did that, we made a conscious effort to just kind of let him go. He just turned into this self-limiting, human being where he didn't break a bone for almost a year. So that Teresa she has osteogenesis imperfecta as well.
Yeah.
And she and Austin just kind of they deal with it, they live with it. Austin has bone pain all the time. His lower legs have microfractures in them every day, just these
Mm.
tiny microscopic fractures. And his legs and feet hurt all the time. I can never appreciate that. So does my wife, you know.
Yeah. Of course, at the same time in this story, the other part of the story is you're battling addiction.
Mhm.
And what was the breaking point for you? When did you realize you had a problem?
Well, if you read the book, go see the movie, you'll see the kind of the pinnacle of my downfall.
Mm.
And it was a specific time and period, and actually it was actually a day away from there being an intervention that never happened because it didn't need to happen. I went to a meeting the next day. It was a horrible night, and it's a major theme in the film and in my book, and it the meetings as well as me rekindling, refinding my faith, my God that I left behind when I was 18 going to college.
Mm.
I think it's
Mm.
such a problem today. I think so many kids leave the nest and they go to school, and what's one of the things they just say goodbye to?
Church.
Sunday morning, gone. And I did that. So it slowly these meetings kind of it intersected with my faith. It was just kind of smoldering, starting to smolder, and it just became a point where my faith and my sobriety were inextricably linked.
Mm-hmm.
They were totally linked, and if one of them were to fail, I know that the other would surely follow. It would have been a bad thing. And to this day, I say the one thing that, besides my faith, that keeps me going is that I understand and I accept that I cannot do certain things. And when it comes specifically to addiction.
Yeah. 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 How did Austin's outlook on life, how did his outlook on life impact your outlook on life and your
Uh,
faith? How did it
well,
transform you?
there's some words he says that are something along the lines of I wish I could appreciate anything as much as Austin appreciates everything. And that's kind of who he is because anybody who meets Austin, and if you get a chance to meet him, you'll understand. But there are people that go to his Facebook page and befriend him through me. He stalks all my friends in a good way. I'm just kidding, but and he friends everybody I'm friends with. And people go to his page if they're having a bad day, just to see his page.
Mm.
And but what he does is he befriends the worst of us. In fact, he gravitates more to those lost souls that are in the worst shape because he believes that every single person is redeemable. And
Mm.
obviously, he's very vulnerable because of some of his unique characteristics, that willingness to trust and love everyone. And
Yeah.
we've intervened a few times, but overall, though, he just is he's so willing to help and just be kind and love anyone.
Yeah. From watching the movie, it seems like he almost, in a sense, sees the world the way God sees the world. And that
It's
seems
pretty
powerful.
profound.
That's, yeah. What were your thoughts when Zachary Levi was cast to portray you?
Well, it tell you what, if you get a chance to listen to Andy Irwin on his podcast, where he has Zach on a few months ago, it's a really, really good episode because Zach talks all about how it came to be for him with the film and everything. And I know this, and this really makes me feel so good. But he basically Lionsgate gave him the opportunity with I think like 8 films. He's like, okay, we're gonna do this film. We know we've got you for this, and here's 8 more that we need to do first. One of them, you pick one. Read all the scripts, and he said it wasn't even close. He picked
Hmm.
up the script, and it was actually the next day it was announced that he would play the Scott character. So I'm
That's awesome.
thrilled. And now that I've gotten to know him like I have, he's transformed into this amazing, faith-filled, godly person that is just
Yeah.
he's an amazing human being. And I couldn't be more happy that I have him and Peter Facinelli as part of my life and part of my story.
Final question for you, Scott. What do you want families and moviegoers to learn from your family's story?
That's easy. And we saw that in Oklahoma City at one of our red carpets a few weeks ago. When someone walks up to you after they see it and they say, that was me. Or they take one small piece of our story and relate it to their own and say, oh my, it's just an aha moment. And it helps them in some small way. If we've done that and they look at the way that no matter how dark and difficult, I hated myself. I was at that point. And when you can walk away and say, you know, I can do this, or I felt better about X, Y, or Z because of what we saw in that story, that to me would be success.